For the second time in 4 years, there's a crowded field in the primary election contest for Mayor of Maui County. Join the conversation as incumbent Mike Victorino, County Council members Kelly Takaya King and Mike Molina, and retired State Judge Richard Bisson answer your questions about issues in Maui County. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. Just as it was in 2018, the election contest for Maui County Mayor in 2022 is a crowded one. In all, 8 people are vying for the county's top job. Maui's mayoral primary is nonpartisan, so if no one gets more than 50% of the vote in the August 13th primary, then the top 2 vote getters will face each other in a runoff election in November. With prominent community members and politicians on the ballot, this race is shaping up to be a close one. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and on the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guests. Richard Bisson is from Kahului and spent 30 years as an attorney and judge in Maui County. He retired in 2021 when he was serving as the Chief Circuit Court Judge. Prior to his judicial appointment, he served as the first Deputy Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. Mike Molina was born in Wailuku and raised in Makawao. He served in the United States Air Force and the Hawaii Air National Guard. He was a teacher on Maui at Lahaina Intermediate and Kalama Intermediate schools. He is currently serving his 7th term on the Maui County Council. Kelly Takaya King is from Kihei and is serving her 3rd term as Maui County Council member. Outside of her work in local government, she is vice president of Pacific Biodiesel, a renewable energy company she founded with her husband in 1995, the first commercial biodiesel company in the U.S. And Mike Victorino is appearing via Zoom tonight due to a COVID-19 exposure. He is from Wailuku Heights and is the current mayor of Maui County. Prior to being elected mayor, he served for 10 years on the Maui County Council. He is a former youth sports coach and director of the Maui County Fair. Also on the ballot are Cullen Bell, Kim Brown, Alana Kay, and Jonah Lyon. Thank you for being here tonight in this hybrid show, if you will, a mix of Zoom and in person. Ms. King, I want to start with you. We have seen a huge increase in the median price of housing in Maui County. How do we make sure that there are affordable homes in the county so that people who want to live there aren't forced to leave?
Well, we're doing that in some respects. Since I've been on the council, I've brought in about 6 affordable housing projects to my district, most of them for the 60% area median income group and below. So we've got affordable rentals. The first one came online in 2020. And the next one just opened today for applications. Meanwhile, we've had a couple of for sale projects that have been moving along. The first one has already been filled by the lottery, and those are duplex units starting at $395,000 a piece. So I don't think you'll see lower prices than that. The affordable rentals are starting less than $600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. So the County Council has been moving ahead. We've got projects in Wailuku and projects in West Maui. We're trying to move ahead faster, and I think that would be a goal of my administration, is to expedite some of these projects. And the way that we've been expediting them in South Maui is to get developers to work with the communities. So you don't get years of pushback and lawsuits and the fight against a particular way a project is being done or an area that's not suitable. And I think we've done a really good job in South Maui. I think we've done a good job in Central and also West Maui. And we're working right now off of a comprehensive affordable housing plan that the council funded. And it's kind of giving us a playbook of how to get there faster. The goal of this plan is to get to 5,000 units in the next 5 years.
Mr. Molina, let's go to you. Do you think that the council is doing enough on this, and what would you do differently as mayor?
Well, let me just first start. I initiated, housing has been a major passion of mine. As you mentioned, this is my 7th term on the council, but years before, I authored mechanisms that help put people in homes, such as the Affordable Housing Fund, the county's First-Time Home Buyers Fund. And we have to attack this problem using a multi-pronged approach, and we need to expand inventory. And some of my ideas include partnering with developers and building on county-owned property, because that's where the expense lies. It's in the land. So we need to maybe go vertical and network with a lot of community stakeholders. But I think we can at least slow down this runaway train, because I'm concerned about the brain drain. We're losing a lot of talented people to the mainland, and I'm concerned about the future of our citizens if we don't address this crisis ASAP. And certainly this is not a problem isolated to just Maui County. It's all over. So I think this council has been moving forward, and I think working cohesively. That relationship between the mayor and the council is so important to reach our goals of addressing the housing crisis.
Mr. Bisson, how would you tackle the housing issue on Maui?
And yet, despite all of that, the average price is $1.2 million, which means there are homes that are even higher than that. What we would do differently, our program is called Kama'aina housing, which means the focus is on who's getting the home, not how much the cost of the home is. I think when you talk about affordable housing, people focus on the price of the home. What we should be focusing on Maui is who's buying those homes, who's getting into the homes. No doubt there have been efforts made, but again, the cost of housing is so expensive. The two issues that come up time and again on Maui is where to build a house and who to sell that house to. Where to build it means we should be focusing on inventory. Where are appropriate places to build? Because those are the things that drive prices up. When you build a home in a place that's not appropriate, you end up spending all this extra time and money trying to deal with that issue. And that gets passed on to the home buyer. So my theory, my thought is we should have an inventory of appropriate places. We should consider having people who buy homes have a homeowner's exemption. In other words, they can show that they're a resident of the island of Maui before they can purchase that home. The county should also be putting in the infrastructure, as they do in most municipalities. That has not been the case in the past, and I think that's something that the county should be doing.
Okay, and Mayor Victorino, what are your thoughts on how to lower the cost of housing and try to make it more affordable for residents of Maui?
Well, we've begun by making private-public partnerships with developers to make sure that the necessary inventory is built for workforce housing. We need infrastructure, and the county is committed to doing that to the property lines of all of these various workforce housing and affordable rentals. We have produced almost 1,500 units over the last 3.5 years, and they've been all over the island. We need to make sure we give a wide array of housing. We recently donated land to the Hospital Foundation for medical staff and medical professionals, and Nahale o Maui for police and fire, what we call those that are in the gap group. The council has concentrated on the 60% and lower, which is fine. We need that. But we need a right array of homes for our police, fire, the professionals that are in our community that cannot afford the 1.2 million, or what you see now, around $1 million, and can't afford to go into those lower income brackets either. So it has to be done, and we've been working that with our Amen group, which works with developers to make sure that a lot of the necessary starting points are taken care of. We have a cultural specialist now that we brought in to take care of cultural issues so that we don't have to take care of that on the back end. So this administration has been very proactive, and we have 3,500 units in the pipeline that we're going to start, and we're going to break ground on 346 apartments here in Wailuku on August 8th. So I'm proud of what we've been able to do, and working with the council, and some of their plans has been very rewarding.
I want to bring in another question. And we appreciate all the viewers who are already writing in. Please continue to write in, call in, and let us know what you want to ask the candidates tonight. Mr. Bisson, this one goes to you from Mike in Wailuku, who says, there's a proposal at the council to cap existing transient accommodations at current levels, essentially a permanent moratorium. How does each candidate feel about that? What are your thoughts on that? There's this push to lower the impact of tourism by lowering the available rooms, or at least keeping them right where they are. What do you think about that?
I don't think we need more hotels on Maui. I don't think anybody is advocating for more hotels. As far as capping tourism, I think the way to do that is to cap activities for certain programs. Like, for example, now you have to have a reservation to go to Haleakala National Park, like you would here for Hanauma Bay. So I think we should consider capping activities if that's what we want to do. As far as the moratorium itself, I don't know that it achieved the goal that it was set out to do, which was to lower tourist or I guess, discourage tourists from coming to Maui. We have to think about the impact that this has. We have lots of people who their livelihood relies on tourism. Now we know that the types of jobs that come from this program, the amount the people get paid, usually have to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to do that kind of work, but it's their work, it is their job. So I think we should consider seriously the impacts that some of this will have if we, but I don't think anyone's disagreeing that we have enough hotels on Maui. We shouldn't have any more hotels.
Ms. King, what are your thoughts? Is this something that should be made permanent?
Well, I think it could if it works in conjunction with diversifying our economy. That's going to be really key to this because if we cap it right now, we're not eliminating any jobs. So let's just get that straight. But we're not allowing future jobs because we won't be expanding the tourism industry. I don't know any other way to cap the tourism numbers to keep them within the recommendations of the Maui Island Plan. We have a Maui Island Plan that says that there should be X amount of tourists per residence on the island, and we've gone over that number. So the only way to cap that, to get that number more reasonable so that we don't have our environment trampled on and our infrastructure overused, is to cap the accommodations, because people make accommodations before they get here. So no one shows up here and then looks for a hotel room. But it's going to be really important, and the council has funded an implementation plan for expanding the economy and diversifying it, so that we can have other jobs. That's really what we need for our next generation as well. It's not just the affordable housing why people are leaving the island. One of the reasons is our young people go off to college, they come back here, and there are no full-time family wage earning jobs in their field, in technology or film or healthcare or some of the things that they really want to do when they get back here. And so expanding into diversifying into other areas like we've been doing with agriculture. This council has put a lot of money and a lot of investment into agriculture in the last few years. That's going to give us the level of jobs that we need. And they kind of have to work hand in hand, because you can't continue to let tourism override our economy and still grow the rest of the economy. We need to have a balance there. And that's what we're looking for in this implementation plan.
Mayor Victorino, what are your thoughts on capping the number of hotels that are on Maui now and not allowing for future development in this area?
Well, first of all, again, I agree that we have ample number of rooms at this time, although Maui County have less rooms today than they had back in 2000, almost 1,500 less rooms than we had in 2000 when we started the new century. However, with that being said, we need to make sure that our hospitality industry diversifies itself by going into healthcare, wellness, and ecotourism. These are areas that we all have talked about. We're seeing some residual effect now. You see on Lanai Sensei, where Mr. Ellison has built a health complex, mostly for elitists, for people that have a lot of money. But we can do a similar program here in Maui County and make this the center of wellness for the state of Hawaii. We have all the tools. But what happens too, when we build this wellness, we also bring in equipment that the residents get to benefit. We don't have to go to Oahu for every time we need a certain type of test, like my MRIs or CAT scans and stuff and things like that. So these are very important issues. And again, with agriculture and technology, especially with broadband, we're working real hard with the broadband HAWAIʻI to make sure that we can expand the horizons, because if something this pandemic has taught us, we can do a lot of sales to like Pop-Up Makiki, Kamaina First, Made in Maui. We can do it virtually, so we don't have to have people come here looking to buy products. They can buy it online, and they can buy it from our local residents, our local vendors.
Okay, Mr. Molina, let's get to you on this question of capping the number of hotels on the island.
Well, I supported the moratorium because I think the development we need now is housing, attainable housing for our citizens. To me, we have enough hotels as it is. We don't need any new hotels at this time, because where are we going to house these employees, And it's going to just create an even bigger competition for rentals and housing. So to me, it makes sense at this point in time to slow down the proverbial runaway train. And then you got to look at the issues of water. Where are we going to get the water from? So that, and on top of everything else that was discussed, we got to respect our residents' quality of life. Having grown up in Maui, and Mr. Bisson too can probably relate to this, we experienced a very, very different Maui back in the day. But now, you know, we have traffic, of course, not at the levels of Oahu, but it is a noticeable difference. I mean, even at the airport and the over-tourism issue. And that's one reason why I support the moratorium as well, to take that pause to see how we're going to address over-tourism, because we have to respect our residents' quality of life. And if we can get some revenue from the tourism industry to help offset our costs, to address infrastructure costs at our parks and roads and so forth, I think that's one route that we need to take. But first and foremost, we've got to respect our residents' concerns about their quality of life.
Okay, and building on that, Mr. Mayor, if you would answer this next question first. This is from Pat Makawao. You know, Mr. Molina brought up the issue of water for any new development, and this is what Pat wants to know. If elected, what are you going to do about the water situation, especially upcountry? You have people waiting for years on the water meter list trying to get a water meter to build their property. We know that water is an issue on each and every island, and Maui, of course, has that as well. So what do you say to Pat and Makawao tonight about just the long wait that they're experiencing in upcountry Maui and water overall?
Well, first of all, for the upcountry area, we need to develop county wells. We have not developed any new wells since Po'okela, which was back in 2000. So it's been over 20 years since we developed any new sources of water by the county. We've had private developers do it, which take their lion's share, and we get very little back at the end. We also have to make sure that we work with the East Maui and other sources that supply our water for upcountry, because there's surface water, and surface water systems will go dry every so often, especially when we don't have rain. And building more reservoirs is part of the challenge because of the restrictions that the state has put out there. But more importantly, learning to use R1 water in areas where we can. And that's why in Central Maui, we're building the new Central Wastewater Treatment Plant, which will, once completed, and divert most of the sewer or the wastewater that's going to the Kauai treatment plant to the Central Wastewater Treatment Plant. We could produce between 10 and 12 million gallons of water each and every day for agriculture, which will reduce the dependency on East Maui also. So there's many facets, but the county has to be in the lead of that. And we hope that the state will allow us to take that lead with also the regional authorities that the council has put on the ballot. You know, I favor that, but with the question is, what's in the details? You know, the devil's in the details, and I need to know the details before we firmly make a commitment. But I know we are looking at working with East Maui. We've met with those people out there, and we continue to meet with various groups.
Okay, Mr. Bisson, what do you say to Pat and Makawao on the water issue?
Yeah, this is not a new issue. This is an ongoing issue. This has gone on for years and years and years, and we're hearing people talk about this as if there's a new issue to deal with. What we should be doing, as I understand the water meter problem of country, is if you are on that list and if you live in a certain part of the town, you're going to get charged for the transmission line that goes to your property. There may be other people along that route that could benefit from that, but they got to wait their turn before they can get theirs. It would make sense to me that we do a system where whoever is next on the list and whoever is on that line, that they all hui together and they benefit from that. Because it's discouraging for the person who's at the end to have to pay this amount that ends up, it can be in high numbers. I've heard as much as $200,000 for somebody to install that. People can't afford that. But if they hui together, they can. And whatever our ancient system is of saying, well, you got to wait your turn and come in next, it makes sense to put the line in for everybody at the same time. It also makes sense to be developing more wells. Of course, that's, again, not a new thing. That could have been done 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but it's being done now. It's being talked about now. The issues that the upcountry people face is when they watch other developments made, other home projects being built, and theirs isn't. Now, usually it's because those folks can find water on their property and get it from somewhere. I also think for drought-prone areas, we should mandate water catchment systems to allow. The county has another rule, I'm told, that you can't have the water catchment and be hooked up on the water, county water at the same time. Now, there's good reason, health reasons for that, but we should have dual systems. We should allow people who are in drought systems to have a catchment and allow them to have that for their animals, for their agriculture, to wash their cars, and use the drinking water in their homes. We also need to think about having dual water systems. One water system that comes in for sanitation in your home, and another water system that's for wastewater, and recycle that and not use our drinking water for wastewater.
Okay, Mr. Molina, what are your thoughts on the water issue?
Well, on top of what's been added into the discussion, I think we also need to repair our infrastructure. That's so important. The council, we've given the mayor and the water department the financial resources to address infrastructure concerns and storage concerns, but that's not enough. And with the whole issuance of meters, the system itself needs to be hoolied or really looked at. Maybe I would consider hiring an outside consultant to look at how we can do this better, and maybe learn from other communities who are experiencing the same problem, because it does seem unfair. Some people say, how come so-and-so got ahead of the line before I did? I understand the policy is if you're ready to build, then you can go ahead and get your water meters issued, but as was mentioned earlier, sometimes how the responsibilities are given for one recipient in terms of you got to do the infrastructure and bear the burden for everybody else, it seems systematically very unfair. So I would, as mayor, definitely want to relook at the system. Maybe it's a management issue of how the meters are being doled out. So, but it's been a long existing problem, and being part of the legislative branch, I have no authority to go and change the system. So certainly it's the authority of the mayor and his or her directors. So definitely I would look at revamping the system, or at least looking at what other communities are doing with a similar problem.
Ms. King.
Well, I agree that it's very frustrating sometimes when you're a policymaker and all you can do is provide funding or make a policy and you're not in the administrative seat to be able to actually make something happen. I'm a firm believer that if you prioritize something, it's going to get done. And I would prioritize water use. I think there's a mixture of things that have to happen. Certainly catchment is one option, and drilling wells, but there's also, we need to look at, we were 4 years ago, in my first term, maybe 6 years ago, we were talking about water storage and stormwater storage, because we have times when we have too much water and all it does is run down the hill and pollute the ocean. So why aren't we capturing that water when it's abundant and saving it for when we need it later? But it needs to be a priority. I haven't heard anything in the past few years from the administration on, an update on where we're at with the water meters. I think that needs to, if we take another look at it and possibly hire someone like this council has done to create the comprehensive affordable housing plan, to create a comprehensive economic diversification plan, and maybe we do need a consultant to create a comprehensive plan for getting the water to upcountry folks. I'm a big believer I was a strong supporter of the Water Authority, because I think we need to get control of our own water delivery systems. And whether the county runs it ourselves or we hire a community-owned business or private management company to run it, it should be under the control of the county, which is the people of Maui. And we'll be able to track the water better. We'll be able to fix leaks. In my first term, I went to an East Maui water workshop that was 2 days long, and it was reported that there's 35 to 40% leakage in that EMI system. And the folks running it were okay. They said that's normal. Well, to me, as a business person, if you have 35 to 40% leakage of your inventory, that's not okay, and you can't stay in business that way. So all of these things need to be looked at. Gray water reuse needs to be looked at. Some technological innovations that we're doing in wastewater. The first one of this regional wastewater reclamation project that I've got funded for, with the help of my colleague and our council, for Ma'alaia. This is a way of taking wastewater, keeping it out of the injection wells, cleaning it up and putting it back on the land for agriculture. So those are some other things that could be moved around. It's modular and it's mobile, so we could use, if this works the way we expect it to work in Ma'alaia, it could be an answer for not just water delivery up country, but all the cesspools. The cesspool replacement is a huge problem up there.
I'm going to stop you there. We have a lot of questions, and we have candidates with a lot of ideas. So I'm going to ask all the candidates to try to keep their responses a little more brief, because we want to get to as many issues as possible. And I want to get this one from Faith, which is something that all the islands are experiencing as well. And Faith on Facebook says, how will these candidates address the houseless, homeless problem? What do you think is the best way to tackle this issue in the near term? Well,
certainly one of the more tougher questions, a very complex issue, but I think it starts first with acquiring land, working with large landowners where we can build, for example, tiny homes or other forms of shelter, shipping containers. I like the model of what's been done out in Waiʻanae. I think having a community out there where they can police, folks who are unsheltered can police themselves. I think that's one route to take. Certainly we got to think outside of the box. I'm also really in favor of, I'm moonlight as a substitute teacher for the state of Hawaii, and I have students that live out of their cars with their parents, and one of the biggest needs are, they need charging stations or areas where they can get Wi-Fi to do their homework. I would be open to opening up some of our community centers as a place where parents can take their kids to get Wi-Fi or get their phones charged up and electronic equipment. I mean, that's one way we can help. But certainly throwing money at it will help, but we also need to have people's attitudes change about how they view the unsheltered, especially our working homeless. And you know, when you look at things like gas prices and everything going up, that really hits hard on people who are the working unsheltered. So, you know, county government needs to work with state and everyone else in private business to address this thing together. It can't just be only the responsibility of county government. And we need to be open to new ideas, especially the administration. We can't always say no. We always have to find a way to look at, yes, we can, and not no can. You know what I'm saying?
Ms. King, what are your thoughts on homelessness and how to address it?
Well, yeah, I started working on homelessness when I first became a council member, and one of the things that came out of the first 2 meetings I had was funding a mobile hygiene unit. So we've got that in a couple of communities on Maui. We need to put more of those services around, and those will provide bathrooms and showers, enclosed ones. You know, you don't have to shower outside in the beach shower, charging stations, and they also will have professional help. People that run them and can meet and can develop relationships with houseless people to try to figure out what there's different reasons why people are houseless, and so whether you need job counseling or mental health assistance or drug rehab or other issues, there's a myriad of issues that need addressing, and they need before you can even refer people to services, you need to develop a relationship and that trust with them. So I was one of the original board members of Share Your Mana, which is one of our locally created homeless nonprofit organizations. Lisa Darcy, who's the executive director of that organization, actually has gone out and lived with houseless people for weeks at a time. And so bringing people like that into government who truly understand the situation that people are going through, have spent countless hours not just living with them, but counseling them, helping refer them, talking with them about what their issues are, why, you know, if they choose to be homeless, why they're choosing, if they're not choosing, what kind of help do they need. And one of the things that I recently got funded, again with my council colleague and the rest of the council, is finding one of the issues that came out of our community discussions was that houseless people who are living in their cars need a safe place to sleep at night. So, you know, I've been trying to get this done since 4 years ago, and it hasn't been a priority of the administrations back then. But this is it's not a fix, but it's a way for them to get through the night. To a lot of the homeless people who work and still go to school, the kids go to school, they need a good night's sleep. And we've heard stories about how that affects their mental health. So there's a lot of things like that we can do. It just, again, it's a matter of prioritizing and having that compassion.
Mr. Bisson.
The short-term solution in my mind for people who have operable cars that work during the day is to utilize our former rental car lots in Kahului at the Department of Transportation Airports Division. It would be to use those. They're fenced in. They're basically a parking lot with a little administration building. It would be allowing people in there in the evenings, having security on that gate. You can't walk in with your shopping cart. You can't just walk in. You got to have a car that works. When you get in there, we'd provide showers, places where people can wash their laundry. You know, when somebody gets a shower and washes their laundry, what they're really doing is restoring their dignity. You give them a place to plug in their electrical outlets. You bring in transition counselors. Maybe somebody needs to get a doctor's appointment, a dental appointment. Maybe they need to renew their driver's license. Maybe you can start talking about housing, getting them into transition housing. So to me, it's a practical idea. You've got a space for them. These lots are not being used for other purposes. A lot of people are already living in their cars. They're already doing this. So we're just giving them a safe space. In the mornings, they've got to drive out and go do something else. The long-term solution to homelessness is housing. I mean, there's no other way around it. That's what it is. And that's what we're dealing with. And all this is related to the high cost of living, the high cost of housing for people who are already on the margins. The last thing I would say about helping people immediately is people who are homeless need storage. The reason somebody doesn't go to an appointment is because they have all of their possessions in a cart in front of them, and they don't trust leaving it there. Because if they go somewhere, come back, it'll be gone. So if we can help get them storage, somewhere that will either donate it or the county can help fund it, when they can put their things away, they can go to appointments, they can go to job interviews, they can do other things that they're limited by because they live with all their possessions.
Okay,
I was trying to be short.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, your thoughts on homelessness?
Many ideas have been covered, and one of the things I can say in Maui County with Kahale Akaola and Family Life Center, we've been taking in and trying to serve this community for many, many years. We did the pallet homes down here at Waiale Park, but that was just a temporary placement. We're doing some of those back out in Wainehe Village where Kahale has their facilities. Getting more hygiene trailers is very important. Safe places for them to sleep in, yes, absolutely. But they have to be safe places, not congregating and getting crime and other issues ganging around these areas, and that's proven to be a challenge. One of the biggest areas that I've always worked and now is really making a big push in is our clergy, our churches. Many of them are willing to take on some of this. We're putting on some of the pallet homes in their lots or in their parking lots, and they're willing to take on some of this. So there's some things that are moving right now that I believe will be a big assistance. Unfortunately, the airport, they use a lot of those facilities that was mentioned. Right now, there are cars and other equipment stored in there, and the airport is going to develop that for other means and usage. So that wouldn't be even a short-term solution. But some of our parks may be something that we can consider. But the trouble is the public at large generally don't want their parks being overrun overnight by people that they can't use, that they can't go fishing, they can't go and enjoy the park themselves. So it's a change in attitude and a change in what we all have to work with. But I think Maui County, like all the other ones, we've seen a reduction in the homelessness, and we continue to work in that direction. And I thank the council and others, that all the agencies that make it possible. They work very hard. The wraparound services is so very important. Thank you.
Thank you. So we talked about some issues that really affect people on all the islands. This one is unique to the county. David says, if elected, how will each candidate share the venison? Well, how would you deal with the problem of access deers? And so I'll pose that to you first, Ms. King.
Well, what we're trying to do right now with providing fencing is keeping them out of certain areas, but then that pushes them into other areas. So it becomes a problem. Someone fixes their problem, it becomes a problem for somebody else. What we really need to do is cull the herd, first of all, and we're probably going to need expert advice for that. We have this Department of Agriculture at the county level that's just starting up, and so we're hopefully, I have experience in working with the USDA, and that's where I would go as mayor, is try to work with the United States Department of Agriculture to figure out how we can not just cull the herd, but how we can get the other part of it, the part that people are hunting. We have a lot of local hunters. Our venison statewide, the access deer, is the best eating venison in the world. And we can't get it to market. There's only one company on Maui that actually can get USDA certification to sell it to restaurants and stores. And so we need to figure out how to help the local hunters get that could be another economic opportunity. It also could be an answer to food security. There's like 70,000 head of access deer running around our island, and it's good eating deer. So we need to find that balance between culling the herd so that it's not that we don't have them in our backyards eating our gardens and eating our fruit trees, and we can make use of the ones that are being hunted and being used as food sources right now.
Mr. Molina, how do you tackle the access deer issue?
Well, on top of what I already said, I think we also learned from the people of Molokai. I guess they had dealt with deer more so than anyone else in the past. So I think deer management, we can learn from them as well. I see this as an opportunity as a food source. We all talk about food sustainability. I would support expanding our agricultural parks and do more processing plants in different areas of the island. So use this as an opportunity. And sometimes I was taught that in times of crisis is when we need to rise up, when our best needs to show. So certainly we can bring in the experts, talk to the local hunters on top of, that includes that insight, but more so it's about the management and making sure that to minimize the damage that the deer are doing as well. So it's another one of those crises, but again, sometimes crisis can be made into an opportunity that can be a positive, can have a positive outcome for the community.
Mr. Mayor, what are your thoughts on the deer issue in your county?
as others have said, there are many solutions out there that we had to keep working towards. We are working with the USDA right now with some of the programs for our new agricultural department, because our new agricultural department is one for advocation, mentoring, and business development of farming and ranching. And ranching of access there can be a big one. Making sure that we get mobile slaughterhouses that are USDA approved and out there, so that we can move around where the herds are and have slaughters at those locations and utilize the food for not only our residents, but as a business and for our needy. You know, there's a big need out there for food in this community. And so this is one of those other areas. But we got to make sure that what we do, we work systematically, area by area, so that we can make sure that these herds are moved into an area where we can mitigate the numbers and really utilize the meat for commercial as well as our residents.
Mr. Bisson.
This has been something we've talked about for a long time. There's a crisis on Maui. The problem with the deer is, of course, that they eat what's being grown by our farmers. They eat the grass that's intended for the ranchers. They involve accidents with motorists, and they threaten our watershed. So there's lots of reasons why. It's an abundant supply. It can help our economy. It's something we should be developing our workforce around. As everyone's already said, we need to improve our processing, our butchering, having mobile slaughterhouses, more mobile slaughterhouses. They have them on each of the counties already. We need to expand that. We also need to convince the Department of Health to have inspectors full-time on Maui until we get this under control. I've been saying 70,000 because that's the number I was given previously. Today I was told the number is closer to 60 to 65,000. Okay, it went down a couple thousand. But the point of it is 20,000 is what the manageable amount is for our island. The biggest thing we cannot afford is to let these animals get into our watershed and threaten our watershed. That's the number one reason why. But it benefits everyone if we can develop it into food. It can be a business. We can provide it for our needy. But we can also use that for dog food. It's what a lot of hunters know this. They do that already with their dogs. Our humane shelter, the Humane Society, their main expense is dog food. So there's a lot of win-win. It helps our environment, number one, our economy, and it's an agricultural product. So I think we win on all counts.
Okay, there are three questions here. They all have to do with healthcare. Mr. Molina, I'm going to start with you, but I'm just going to read all three because this is an issue for many people. Lehua says, how do the candidates feel about getting and building another hospital on Maui since we only have one? What is their stance on Maui Hospital and the strain on doctors? And Bridget says, to all the candidates, is another hospital on Maui a priority? If so, how will you accomplish that? How will you keep our healthcare providers on Maui? Let's keep this brief if we could.
Yeah, good question. Well, we definitely need another hospital in West Maui, and it's been talked about for years, but I guess plans fell through with a private owner, and I'm not sure maybe the permit process, there were some problems, but I will definitely make that a priority. And also, I think one important thing that I'm looking at is to grow our healthcare professionals here in Maui County, because as we all know, it's expensive to send our kids off island to go to school. So I would look at partnering with outside agencies or educational institutions to develop training programs right here in Maui County. So sort of developing a farm system of getting our young people educated to fill some areas of critical need in healthcare profession, especially for kupuna like myself. You know, we're going to need a lot of healthcare professionals down the road as more people are living longer. So that's one type of partnership I would like to look at in terms of filling the void of having our healthcare professionals in physical therapy and so forth. But certainly, having a hospital in West Maui would be a priority.
What are your thoughts on the hospital issue?
We shouldn't let perfect be the enemy of good. We shouldn't be shooting for a hospital necessarily. If that's going to take too much work, but at least emergency room facilities that we can do a 24-hour, 24/7 operation on the west side, maybe even South Maui might be ready for one, but where we can have emergency room facilities, a smaller one, maybe not necessarily a full-fledged hospital, because trying to do that has proven to be, has not worked. So maybe we shoot for something smaller that we can, and I think people of West Maui would love having that, especially when the pali is sometimes closed because of accidents and fires. So we do need a facility there, at least for emergency room. We would have to partner with some other agencies to do that and make that happen, but I think that would be a priority for probably any of us here.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, what are your thoughts on the hospital issue on Maui?
Well, West Maui does need another facility, whether it's for acute care or initial trauma care, and even South Maui. Well, we look at what we have going here. First of all, the college has teamed up with some of our high schools with CNA programs where we have career paths being set for our medical professionals. I have two nephews, one who's going to be an oncologist and one who's going to be a full-fledged physician. And both of them have worked very hard, but they've worked in the local system, the University of Hawaii, at Hilo and at Manoa. And now I'd like to see us expand here. You know, not only have culinary and not only agriculture, but a wellness program that I believe could attract quality doctors and nurses and healthcare providers, and we really up our game as far as what we have available to us, the residents of Maui County. You know, equipment is also needed. We send people off island, like I mentioned. This would also help us in this area. I believe we have a good track now. We're moving forward, and wellness and healthcare is going to be a real big push for the County of Maui. And we have the workforce development programs being instituted right now. So in 5 to 10 years, we can accommodate the needs of Maui County.
Ms. King.
I would support another hospital on Maui. I think it's necessary. There have been pushes for South Maui and West Maui. West Maui is a little more remote, so you know if something happens on that one road to West Maui, we're stuck. So I think that would, but that's an issue for the state for funding, and we've been working with our state. As a community member, I was part of the folks working with our state legislators on that for funding. But as a mayor, I would support another hospital. I also support, as a council member, the expansion of healthcare workers, and the county has been partnering with UH Maui College on that. We've also been partnering with Halemakua, which is a senior facility that is starting a program where they can bring in folks who are training in the healthcare, taking classes to actually start working in positions of healthcare to decide if they really want those positions as a lifelong career or not, and to give them a kind of a jump start on that career, like what happened during the pandemic when they were bringing in young doctors. So there's definitely a lot of partnering going on, and even though healthcare is more of a state issue than a county issue, I would definitely support those issues as mayor.
Okay, Mr. Bisson, this question's coming from Miguel. He says, most mayoral candidates say they will create more jobs, but right now the problem is not enough jobs. The problem is businesses are short-handed. What is your plan to help fill the employers' needs of businesses in Maui?
We need to have more mentoring and internship programs. Along the lines of healthcare, we should consider physician assistants. We don't have to have full-fledged doctors here on Maui. We could consider starting physician assistance programs like nursing, in wellness. But I think mentoring and internship has kind of been touched on. I'm the product of mentoring. In 1984, I worked at the prosecutor's office on Maui as a first-year law student for the summer. It was a voluntary position, but I learned that that's the kind of work I wanted to do. So I know this would work for our Maui people. We got to get people right out of high school, get them into the different fields that we think they might want to be attracted to, find out if they want to do that work, give them work to do during their Christmas breaks, during their summer breaks, because we're going to be competing against other people from their college towns, wherever they're attending. So we need to get them on Maui into mentoring, internship programs, and build and grow our workforce from within. When we get upset that we don't have enough workers in a particular area, we have to ask ourselves, well, what have we done to try to grow that ourselves? And I think we can do it. For me, any county agency that gets a grant from the county, I think should be required to have a mentoring program.
Okay, Mr. Victorino, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, mentoring is one factor, and the other is training and development of workforce. We have a new era coming, and so we've been moving with that, with our workforce development programs. And we recently, earlier this year, won a national award for it. And so, I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish. We're looking at what the new era is, automation. Even agriculture is becoming more automated. And how do we prepare people for these jobs? More of the trades, for a long time, let's go to college, get a degree. But the trades were hurting big time. And now we're partnering up and mentoring with trade unions and others to make sure that the trades have the necessary apprentice programs and helping them in that area. Also with the hospitality industry, making sure that there's a career path in hospitality. So all these areas that we are looking at, wellness, healthcare, hospitality, agriculture, and the area of entrepreneurship. We have some of the best entrepreneurship programs here with the Core 4 program with Maui Economic Opportunity. MEDB has some great programs also. So we have a wealth of opportunities. It's a matter now to make sure that we coordinate the STEM program, which has really led a lot of our young people with robotics and all that into the field of technology and automation. So we're moving on, but we keep partnering with the state and others to make sure this happens.
Ms. King.
Well, I have a different take on the problem. I mean, I think mentoring is great, but I don't think that's our problem. Our problem is people aren't going back to work after the pandemic. And I know this as a business person because we've had problems that we didn't have before before the pandemic and during the pandemic. And so I think the first thing is we got to find out why people aren't coming back to work. And I suspect the main reason is the pay. You know, if you have to pay for childcare is the hardest thing to find right now because of the pandemic and because people don't want to go into other people's homes. So maybe we need to get involved in helping with childcare, but I'm hoping that what the state legislature did in this last session will help by raising the minimum wage. It wasn't aggressive enough. We really needed a more aggressive bill. I mean, I can't imagine hiring anybody for less than $15 an hour, and our minimum wage is going to be $12 right now. So I think that's part of the problem. And so I would continue to advocate at the state legislature for higher pay, higher minimum wage. But we need to get the people who were working back to work. And for some reason, they're not coming back to work. It's hard to get them back to work when it costs more for childcare than they can make in that same period. So, you know, whether we have to do something like supplement childcare or provide free childcare as a county to help make that happen, I think we need to do some real soul searching and a huge survey to find out why those people, the people that we had working before, are not coming back to work.
Mr. Molina, what are your thoughts on this?
Certainly great suggestions mentioned by my fellow candidates, but one important element left out of the discussion is housing. Everything spins off of housing. I've talked to business owners, and they're losing workers because they can't afford rents, they can't afford to own, so which is why everything spins off of the housing, and you know why we need to expand our inventory. The council has provided tax relief incentives for property owners who do long-term rentals. I mean, that's one way we can, you know, sort of stem the tide, if you will, of people leaving the county. But again, you need housing for employees or housing opportunities because they're not going to stay here if they have no opportunity to be housed here in Maui County.
Yeah, Angie, can I add one thing? What we learned is people adjusted themselves during the pandemic to their situation. Not necessarily because they had children or didn't have children, they just adjusted their lifestyle to the way the pandemics placed their demands on them. So they figured out a way to live with less. People started home businesses. People did things to survive, to make it through there. And when it was all done and we got through and we're still partly in it, people figured out a way to adjust their lifestyles to it and just change their way of living. Is what I think happened.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to we've talked a lot about, Mr. Victorino, just 1 second. We've talked a lot about the issues, but I actually want to, we only have about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get to you as people. And Wayne wants to know, why do each of you think you are most qualified to be mayor? I know it's hard to be brief when talking about oneself, but in the interest of time, please do. Mr. Victorino, we'll start with you. What makes you qualified to continue in this role?
Well, I really wanted to add one more important point. A lot of seniors have not, or people that have retired, they have not gone back to work for fear of COVID. So that I wanted to make that into all the other things. Well, first of all, in this pandemic, I've proven my leadership time in and time out, making the hard decisions for the people of Maui County. You know, this was very important. The well-being and health of the county and our residents was very important. And when we came out of the economic downturn, working hard with businesses and all other segments of our community to make sure we collaborated and got things done for the people of Maui County. We're one of the strongest financial counties in the state. We stand tall in many areas. Yes, we have challenges. I'm not going to say we don't, but I feel very good that under our leadership and under this administration, we've taken on every problem, whether it was fires, floods, pandemic, or otherwise, and met it and corrected it and did our best to make sure everyone was taken care of. And so we tried our best, and I believe we're in a good place right now. And under our leadership, we feel that we can move this county forward with many of the solutions that we've talked about tonight.
Ms. King, what do you say to Wayne? What makes you qualified to be mayor?
Well, I've been on the council for 3 terms. I've also been in business, 2 successful businesses for total of over 40 years. I'm a person who is results oriented, And it's been a little frustrating, quite frankly, sitting on the sidelines just making policy or even getting things funded that don't get implemented or enforced. So I'm motivated for those reasons. I've also been involved in almost every issue personally, you know, from farming, which we're doing personally. I've been involved in many of the nonprofits, educational, the homeless nonprofits, the food security, Maui Nui Food Alliance. I'm on the board of the steering committee for that organization. I've also spent time I've been appointed as a state member of the High Tech Development Corporation, and that was really pushing the envelope on economic diversification from the state level into technology. I also have spent a lot of time collaborating with numerous other businesses and other companies. Our former farm service agent said that Pacific Biodiesel was the most collaborative company she'd ever met. And I think the other thing is that I've also been told by people that I'm the most transparent council member that there is, and I pretty much wear everything on my sleeve and I tell everybody the truth. I think the transparency and collaboration is a big need in our administration moving forward, and the people are asking for that. There's a lot of information that needs to be shared.
Mr. Molina, what makes you qualified?
Okay, well, first of all, the experience and putting aside legislative accomplishments like the Affordable Housing Fund, the Plastic Bag Reduction Law, and the First Time Home Buyers Fund, which I authored. But it came in, those pieces of legislation were made possible with input from the people. So I'm not afraid to go out there and get answers. You know, I don't have an ego that I have to say I did this or that. It's important for me to engage, empowering our citizens. I've always been a strong believer in open, accessible, and responsive government. I take the term public servant very seriously. You know, it's important to serve you, the public. I am your servant, and it is my kuleana, or responsibility, to provide you the best possible service and to earn your trust with integrity and openness and honesty, and just be there for you. And it's so important to get people engaged, our citizens, to participate in the decision making, because it helps elevate our whole community's socioeconomic status, and also promotes the principles of democracy. So I'm a strong believer in those principles, and I'll carry that with me should I be elected mayor.
Okay.
I've served our community for over 35 years, not on the sidelines, but on the front lines. I've been a prosecutor for 15 years. 8 of those years I was the county prosecutor under 2 different mayors. I was the head of the first Deputy Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. I was the head of the prisons, 2,300 employees, a $200 million budget back in 2004. I've also been a judge for 17 years, including being a chief judge. I've started the mental health court on Maui. I see the aftermath of people's poor decisions, and again, on the front line. I was voted Attorney of the Year in 2001, inducted into my high school's Hall of Fame for community service, received the Distinguished Citizenship Award in 1999 from the Men's March Against Violence for the work on domestic violence. 2013, I was selected as the alumnus of the law school. First time that that's happened for any neighbor island person. I'm currently the Jurist of the Year for the state of Hawaii. So everything I've worked on, I've tried to get in there, be on the front lines, not on the side, and being involved in it firsthand. So I'm very familiar with the issues that we face on Maui, and I think I have the leadership to do that.
Okay, we have just 3 minutes, so we've got to keep our answers to about 30 seconds, which is hard, but this is a fun one, so it shouldn't be too hard. Lehau Nani on Facebook says, aloha, putting aside the challenges and issues we have, what do you feel makes Maui no ka'oi? And I want to start with you, Ms. Kane.
Well, Maui's beautiful. It's just the most beautiful place on earth, and you know that's one of the areas that I would focus on too as an environmentalist and a climate expert. I was a delegate to COP26 because of the work I've done on the climate issues, and I'm also the local government advisory committee member from the first one from Hawaii to the EPA. So I would just say, you know, that's our biggest preservation issue, because it's not just the beauty of Maui, but it's our lifeline.
Okay, what makes Maui no ka'oi?
People, you know, and the aloha, and just growing up in a beautiful environment. And I've been so blessed to be in 2 professions that's very people oriented. I was a teacher before I became an elected official, and just that the engagement with each other, the educational process, it's reciprocal. We learn from each other, and if it were not for education and politics, there's so many people I would not have known. So just the simple answer is the beauty of the people of Maui County.
There's no question it's the people. That's the number one reason. The people and our culture. We still understand when you go to a party, kupuna eat first, keiki eat first, right? We understand that. We practice our culture. And I think there's no question about it, despite the beauty of our island, it's the people that make us Nokawai.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, we'll give you the last word tonight.
Aloha is not just a word, it's a way of life. And we've all grown up with that. We are so unique in the way our people treat others. We welcome people here. And that's why we need to continue to work hard to provide what the residents need: housing, cost of living, and making sure that they can live here and raise their families here. I have a big vested interest. I not only have children, I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And that really has emphasized in my mind what is so important to all is to make sure that Hawaii and Maui Nui stays Nokawai. So to all of you, I say mahalo for this wonderful evening. Yanji, thank you so very much, and to all my colleagues, mahalo.
Okay, well, mahalo for joining us tonight. We do thank our guests, candidates for Maui County Mayor, Mayor Mike Victorino, Council Member Mike Molina, Council Member Kelly Takaya King, and retired Judge Richard Bisson. Next week, right here on Insights, we'll feature 2 state legislative races. We will hear from the candidates in the Republican primary for State Senate District 6 on Maui, and 2 incumbents facing off in the Democratic primary for State House District 34 here on Oahu. Please do join us then. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha.